Welcome to Learning with UNP. In this session of Python for Data Science, we are going to understand about looping through strings. That includes looping through a string using a for loop and finally looping through a string using a while loop. Let's begin with understanding what does looping through string means. Looping through a string in Python allows you to access each character in the string one by one. This can be accomplished in multiple ways using either a for loop or a while loop. Both methods offer flexibility in how you process and manipulate string data in Python. Here, we'll explore both the methods. Let's look at using a for loop. When you use a for loop to iterate through a string in Python, the loop automatically traverses each character in the string, one at a time, sequentially from the beginning to the end. For each iteration, the loop variable is assigned the current character, allowing you to perform operations directly on it. This method is concise and readable, making it a popular choice for simple string processing. The output will display each character in the string sequentially as the loop moves from the first to the last character. Here is the syntax of it. For char in my string, code block to execute for each character. This code iterates through each character in the string my string, executing a specific code block for each character. Let's look at the pseudocode representation of it. Step 1. Initialize a string variable myString means start by initializing a string variable named myString. Step 2. Use a for loop to iterate over each character in myString means utilize a for loop to iterate over each character in the string myString. Step 3. For each iteration, assign the current character to a variable char. Means in each iteration, assign the current character to a variable char. Step 4. Execute the code block inside the loop for each character. Means execute the code block inside the loop for each specified character. Step 5. Repeat steps 3 to 4 until all characters have been iterated. Means repeat steps 3 and 4 until all characters have been iterated. Here are few examples demonstrating looping through string using a for loop. In the first example, we initialize a string variable named myString with the value hello. Using a for loop, we iterate over each character in the myString. In each iteration, the variable char is assigned the current character. Inside the loop, we execute the code block to print each character using the print function. Let's execute and check. As we discussed, each character is executed and printed sequentially. In the second example, it is demonstrating an alternative approach to iterating through a string using the range function and indexing. Instead of directly iterating over characters of the string, we generate a sequence of indices corresponding to each iteration's position in the string using the range length of myString. Then, in each iteration, we access the current character at current index I using indexing of myString of I and print it. This method achieves the same result as directly iterating over the characters of the string but provides a different way to access and process strings characters. Let's execute and check. It has given the same output as the previous example, but the approach we used is different. The third example demonstrates how to iterate over the characters of a string in Python by using a for loop along with the enumerate function. The string hello is assigned to the variable myString. The for loop then iterates over each character in the string with enumerate function, providing both the index and the character for each iteration. Inside the loop, the current character is printed. The enumerate function is useful here as it allows access to both the index and the character simultaneously, even though in this particular case, in this particular example, only the character is printed and the index is not used. Let's execute and check. As we discussed, only the characters are printed HELLO.
The fourth example demonstrates how to loop through a string in reverse order by using reversed function with the string. The order of characters is reversed during each iteration. Then, for each iteration, the variable char is assigned the current character, allowing us to process the characters in reverse order. Finally, the code block inside the loop prints each character, resulting in the characters being printed in reverse order compared to their original sequence in the string. Let's execute and check the output. As you can see, it is printed from the backwards. HELLO should be the actual sequence. Since we are using the reversed function, it is printed in reverse order, as mentioned here. Here is a summary of different approaches covered. First one is using a for loop. Iterate over each character directly using a for loop. Second one is using range and indexing. Utilize the range function along with the indexing to access each character. Third one is iterating over characters directly, using the enumerate function to loop through characters directly, obtaining both the index and character in each iteration. Fourth one is reversing a string. Use the reversed function to loop through the string in reverse order. These methods provide flexibility in how you traverse and interact with strings, allowing you to tackle various text processing tasks efficiently. Looping through strings is indeed a fundamental skill in Python, enabling effective processing and manipulation of text data. Now let's look at using while loop. Using a while loop to iterate through a string involves manual control over the index variable. The loop starts with the index set to 0 and continues as long as the index is less than the length of the string. During each iteration, the character at the current index is accessed and processed. After processing, the index is incremented to move to the next character. This approach provides more control over the looping process, allowing for complex conditions and operations within the loop. The output will similarly display each character in the string sequentially, but with the added flexibility to incorporate more complex logic if needed. Here is the syntax of it. Index equals to 0, while index less than length of my string, char is equal to my string of index, include code block to execute for each character, index is incremented to 1. What this code does is it uses a while loop to iterate through a string, my string. It initializes an index variable index to 0 and continues looping until the index is less than length of my string. During each iteration, it accesses the character at the current index, assigns it to the variable char, executes a code block for each character, and then increments the index by 1 to move to the next character. Let's look at the pseudocode representation of it. Step 1. Initialize a string variable myString. Means start by initializing a string variable named myString. Step 2. Initialize an index variable to 0. Means initialize an index variable which is initialized to 0. Step 3. Use a while loop with a condition to iterate until the index is less than the length of my string. Means use a while loop with a condition to iterate until the index is less than the length of my string. Step 4. Inside the loop, access the character at the current index in my string and assign it to a variable char. Means inside the loop, access the character at the current index in my string and assign it to a variable named char. Step 5. Execute the code block inside the loop for each character. Means execute the code block inside the loop for each specific character. Step 6. Increment the index by 1 in each iteration. Means at each iteration, increment the index by 1. Step 7. Repeat steps 3 to 6 until all characters have been iterated. Means repeat the steps from 3 to 6 until all characters in the sequence have been iterated. Using a while loop for string traversal provides flexibility, especially when you need to control the loop's end based on conditions. other than just going through the whole string. However, it usually needs more lines of code compared to a for loop or other methods of string iteration in Python. This extra detail may take it less clear for straightforward string traversal, but it's useful when more complicated end conditions or operations are needed within the loop. Finally, let's look at an example illustrating how to iterate through string using while loop. We initialize a string variable named myString with the value hello. An index variable is initialized to 0 to keep the track of the current position in the string. Using a while loop, we iterate through the string until the index is less than the length of myString. Within each iteration, we print the character at current index using myString of index. After printing the character, we increment the index by 1 to move to the next character in the string. Let's execute this and check. As we discussed, the output is HELLO. The summary of the entire information we discussed is mentioned here as key points. This is all about today's lecture. See you in the next lecture. Thank you.